Finally, the last step, step 5, is making decisions regarding student progress. Remember that only some of the measures we have covered here can be represented in a traditional time series graph, the line graph that you see most often in progress monitoring. To represent data this way, it should be measures that are repeatable and represent the same skills and metrics over time. This is why CBM data is typically the most appropriate to represent on a time series graph. However, even if some data that you collect, like lots of data that we talked about here, is not graphed, we have to give equal weight to all pieces of data. As a wise person once said, don't let a graph take the place of common sense. However, when interpreting graphed student data, research has indicated that we should use standard practices. First, our current research is clear that the length of time rather than the number of data points should be used to begin looking at students' response. Yes, we need a certain number of data points in order to see if progress is being made, but data points alone mean very little if the student has not been given enough time with the instruction. So, for graph data, typically this is your curriculum-based measure or your computer adaptive testing that's being used the most frequently, we need to monitor for a minimum of 10 weeks before making decisions regarding student response. To decide if they are responding, we should calculate a trend line using a regression analysis, with ordinary least squares being the methodology most frequently used. And this should be calculated using about 7 to 10 data points. From this trend line, we'll decide, are students having a positive, negative, or questionable response? Of course, within this interpretation, we are always looking at the student within the context of the instruction they're provided. In other words, did other students respond? Is the student really an outlier compared to the group, or is his progress what other students are making? In addition to the graph data, which is that CBM or computer adaptive test, we also want to look less formally, but with the same amount of weight at the other data sources we've talked about. So we want that gap to be closing on other measures to show response. We want to see that the student is generalizing back to the classroom. Although this may be slow, we want to see that it is being generalized. And are they acquiring the skills in the intervention? So on those intervention embedded assessments and mastery measures, do we see that each week they are seeming to acquire those skills? This is not a black and white process. Measuring a student's response is an art and a science. We want to make sure that we're making good decisions for students and groups of students in order to proceed to close gaps for kids receiving intervention. I hope this has helped with your progress monitoring knowledge. Please don't hesitate to reach out with questions or concerns, and be sure to review the complete assessment guidelines for additional information regarding student assessment. Thank you.